secondary due to conflict safety regulations, smoking is not a proper investment. So please vote for And to our right behind us is the beautiful city of Perth, the most isolated capital city in the world. Recently voted as the 18th best place in the world to live. Also named the golden city. I'm sure one understands the conclusion. Now Perth was first discovered in 1801 by a French explorer by the name of Lieutenant Percy. He made some charts and maps of Victoria. As we come around on our right hand side, you can see the big fair of Quokkas market. And you see the exact one up there, that's called the Wiser. Perth, of course, is home to 1.3 million people and rising. The area of West Perth's Sunday freeway system on the edge of the city. It's originally known as the Golden Horse Bridge, but later changed it.
It's the largest number of boats per person anywhere in the world, actually. And that complex on the right, that's called the Pier 21 complex, consisting of the Pier 21 Marina. It's got a restaurant, and as we come around on the right, you'll be able to see the Pier 21 Resort. Food must have been somewhat questionable because the restaurant has since closed down, and it's been closed for some time too.
Might ring Rick anyway and just see what. So Rick's here. Well, I think they were getting the 10:30 boat back, but I expected to see them here. I thought we'd cross over. No, but... Yeah, very up.
Right, Eris, what's happening? The curtain come off.
Oh, is that right?
House is situated. From up there we will have views right the way around the island and across to the skyline of Perth on the mainland, and then the next stop we'll make right out here at West End, the westernmost point of the island. Very interesting area this. There are large cliffs all around and also a boardwalk that runs around the headland out there, and we'll have about 15 or 20 minutes today to look around this area. And we'll take a stroll around the boardwalk. We will see a lot of water birds out there. We also see the dolphins and the fur seals on occasions. So we qualify that. Now the dolphins do live out in this area. There are a couple of very large pods, but behind the Garden Gulf, which is not one of our tour highlights, I'll tell you now. But you'll see this whole area through here is a large depression. That's where the first limestone quarry on the island was situated. The limestone cut and taken from there was used to construct the first buildings behind us in the main settlement, and that occurred in the early 1830s. Now you'll see either side of us now a very good cross-section of the island itself. Particularly on the right hand side here, you'll see that Rottnest is one huge chunk of limestone, and this particular type of limestone is Tamala, line side of the island. Now just coming into view up here in front of us is a hill. Sitting up on Oliver Hill are two 9.2-inch naval guns which were part of the coastal defences here during the Second World War. Those two guns are in very good condition. Up to the hill you'll be met by one of our volunteer guides, and they will take you on a very interesting 1-hour tour through the gun turrets and the tunnel systems. Now we will be seeing those guns from our tour today, but from quite a long distance, so if you would like a closer look you'll need to take the train up to Oliver Hill. Now most of the accommodation you see along here is occupied by the permanent residents on Rottnest Island. There are currently about 160 people living here permanently, and they are employees of the Rottnest Island Authority and their immediate families. Now there are no private people living on Rottnest. To live on Rottnest you must work on Rottnest. But just because you work here doesn't mean you're allowed to live on the island. As well as those permanent residents, there are a similar number of workers, but too many cyclists on this 2-hour journey. Although having said that before, and had a few problems. Now this is our Quokka Information Centre. You can see a very high-tech affair there, with very few Quokkas there at the moment. But we will be stopping near the lighthouse, where I'm sure there will be piles of them. Now down this road here on our left, that leads down to Kingston Barracks, and the barracks was built by the Army in 1936 to house the garrison stationed here on Rottnest Island. Rottnest was the forward defences for the very important Allied port of Fremantle during the Second World War. Because of the importance of Rottnest, there are still many reminders standing on the island today of that Second World War period. Now, as well as those 9.2-inch guns on Oliver Hill, this area up here had two 6-inch naval guns guarding the South Passage into Fremantle Harbour. Both of those guns were taken down at the end of the war. You can see one back at the barracks, but if you look up through the corner here, you can see some of the support buildings up there. That's the old observation post. Just behind these trees here is the magazine where the shells for the guns were stored. And up there on the hill you'll also find the plotting room and the very large blocks of concrete onto which those guns were bolted. This seal rock. There is quite a large colony of male fur seals that live in these waters, and that's normally a very good place to see them, sitting up on the beach over there, but I can't really see too much happening there at the moment. There are quite a few boats around there at the moment, and the seals, being more of an aquatic creature, once people or boats come close to them when they're sitting on the land, they tend to take to the water where they feel much more comfortable. So once there are boats and people around there, we don't really see them remaining on the beach. Now we'll stop here for a moment. I'll tell you about this area, but we do have plenty of dolphins about the place, and I'm sure there was just a slight misunderstanding between the porpoises and the dolphins. Now, although it's very poorly named, Porpoise Bay has played Sea Captain Willem de Vlaming. Now, as I said earlier, well, apart from the bikes being a problem, as I said earlier, we have been telling everyone for the last 300 years this is where Captain de Vlaming landed. However, recently scholars in the Netherlands have been having a very good look at all the maps and charts that Captain de Vlaming left us, and they've now come to the rather startling conclusion that for the last 300 years we have all been reading de Vlaming's map upside down. And now when we turn it around the right way, we very quickly discover Captain de Vlaming landed on the north coast of Rottnest around by the basin, which is, to me, a very sensible idea. The basin is the calmest, most sheltered anchorage, particularly in summer, when we do have very powerful prevailing southerly winds. From that shipwreck. Now what he didn't know was that the ship itself had sunk about 70 kilometres north of here, and the wreckage was carried down the coast of Western Australia to Rottnest Island by the Leeuwin Current, the most powerful ocean current surrounding mainland Australia. Now de Vlaming didn't know about the Leeuwin Current. He landed some of his crew on this island. They searched around all over the place, found nobody here. The island was totally uninhabited, but what they did find horrified them greatly. They quickly discovered the entire island was infested with giant rats. And although those rats were really quite friendly, the crew were very disturbed by the sight. Our marine rangers will board their vessel, beat them to a bloody pulp, find them very heavily and throw them off the island. Now we do police this very, very strictly. Now you will also see up the front here a string of small buoys running across to Parker Point itself. Inside that area there is the Parker Point Marine Reserve, and that is kept purely for swimming and snorkeling. And the reason for that is inside that area there is the Possilipora Coral Reef, one long continuous coral reef that runs from behind the point right out to where those little waves are breaking, and then it breaks up and extends right the way, and it is the perfect temperature to support coral and tropical fish. and it brings the coral spawn and tropical fish from the reefs in the northwest right down the coast here to Rottnest Island. Now the beaches across, we can see the mainland from here, the beaches across there is no Lewin current on those beaches, and there is a huge difference between conditions here and conditions on the beaches of the mainland. For a start, the water here is up to 4 degrees warmer. Here in this water we have 103 species of tropical fish. Across on the beaches of Perth there are only 5 species of tropical fish. Also here we have huge coral deposits, large reefs around the island. You can see the water is very, very clear, very, very calm, even when there's much, much cooler. Here anywhere up to about 6 degrees cooler. Now, very clear examples of those limestone shoals I was talking about, those very hard, sharp areas that are left behind when the softer limestone around them has been dissolved into the water where their food is swimming around. Also, particularly here on Rottnest, we have thousands of snakes and lizards, and if the birds were nesting here on the shoreline, they do spend quite a long time outside of their nest, even when they do have eggs in there. If the birds were to leave, the lizards and snakes were breeding and feeding platforms for the osprey. This is Salmon Bay here, folks, with the lighthouse there in the background. So you really have picked a good day. Beautiful conditions, very, very flat, glassy ocean. And they would destroy that vegetation before it really had a chance to re-establish itself. Now the quokkas are very much the furry, friendly face of Rottnest. We do love them very, very much, but as I explained earlier, their very large numbers are now causing, through the middle of these very large south coastal dunes, of course has not helped the problem. The army occupied Rottnest during the Second World War. It was turned into a massive military base. Obviously the army had other things on their mind during that period. Only a 2-hour tour.
Well, I did. Blue t-shirt, yeah?
Dad, this Quokkas is fruit.
See why they think the place is red.
They are wallabies. I'll give you, just wait there folks, I'll come over and give you the most exciting proper talk you've ever heard. Hopefully it's the first one you've ever heard. Alrighty now, let me grab hold of one of these animals there. Chunky fellow. Right folks, now the quokkas are like all true Australian mammals. They are a marsupial, which means down in the front of the female, let's see if we've got a female here. Stand up there for us, girl. Down in the front here of the female, oh she's a bit frisky, there is a very small opening to quite a large pouch that extends right around under their legs here and down the back. And the little baby Joey, soon after it's born, will climb up the mother's fur, find its way into the opening of that pouch, and then attach itself to one of the nipples inside the pouch. Now, like all marsupials, the baby does most of its development outside of the mother's body rather than inside the body, which means they have a very, very short gestation period, only 27 days inside the mother's womb, which obviously means when they are born they are very, very underdeveloped. They're just a tiny little pink thing about that long, totally helpless. Instinct causes the little fellow to climb up the mother's fur, and there is the opening to the pouch. I can just work my finger inside there. For those people on this side, you can see that. And the little Joey will then spend the first 6 months of its life mostly inside the mother's pouch. Now as it gets a little older, it starts to grow a bit of fur, it starts to resemble the ducks, and as time goes on they'll spend longer and longer snuffling around. Eventually they'll get much too large and you will see the females staggering around with a huge swelled up pouch. The joey, most of it will be hanging out in family groups. Now quokkas are very, very territorial animals. Where they are born, they will spend their entire lives in a very small range. Now these quokkas here, we see the same ones year after year, and they will, as I say, spend their entire lives in this small area here. Now where they are stopping on their bikes, hopping off, giving them food, giving them water. So these ones here are very, very healthy, very, very well fed, very, very well watered. Unfortunately, those quokkas born out in the centre of the island where people are not passing by, particularly during summer, they have a very hard time of it because there is virtually no fresh surface water. Most of the quokkas on the island will go the whole summer without drinking any fresh water whatsoever. Now they get their moisture just by increasing their food intake. They will eat more and more food to extract the little moisture that are in these plants. Well, not these ones, but the plants growing around the place. Also, early mornings they'll be out looking for any dew that may be on the leaves. Apart from that, they have no fresh water, and many of the quokkas will go months during summer without drinking any fresh water. Obviously, for the older, weaker ones, it is a huge problem. And at the end of summer, a lot of the older, weaker quokkas will die out. This occurs right before the breeding season. So the older, weaker quokkas die out, leaving behind the younger, stronger males to breed for the next breeding season. Now, as I said earlier, there are about 10 to 12,000 quokkas on Rottnest. Nocturnal they are, semi-nocturnal, more active at night. During the day they rest, snooze. They don't nest or they don't climb, they don't burrow, they just slump over where they are standing. You'll just see them lean forward and fall asleep. Often you can be driving around and they'll be standing.
Do the permanent residents have pets?
No, it's strictly illegal. Rottnest is an A-class reserve.
I mean pets of quokkas?
No, they do not. Nobody is allowed to keep quokkas as pets. Anyone caught attempting to remove a quokka from Rottnest is liable for a $20,000 fine. Those fines also, it's a very, very dangerous thing. Now, the quokkas, well, yeah, careful picking them up, they do scratch and bite. It's good night Irene because they won't be able to replace that moisture. Also bread, the yeast